Today I'm going to make a picture frame and I'm going to take you along step by step. I'm going to make it out of this red cedar. It's going to be rustic. There's going to be nothing super fancy here, just a basic picture frame with a very rustic look to it. Exactly what I'm looking for. Hi everybody, I'm Jim Deerdorf and this is Detroit DIY. Let's get started. I already have the picture chosen. I've got the matting and I've got the backing, I've got the glass, I've got everything ready to go. So we need to make our picture frame to this size, which is 13.5 by 17.5. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get these cut down, and I'm going to cut them 2 pieces at 26 and 2 pieces at 22 just to get everything started for the layout. Now that I've got my material cut to rough length, I am ready to get some 45s cut on here, get some measurements. I can cut 145 with no problem. However, you want to inspect your board well, because as you can see I have some issues back here. So I wouldn't want that to wind up being the outside of my frame. I want that to be the inside, because we're going to remove some of this material anyway for the picture and the glass to sit back into with the dado blades. So we are going to make sure that we keep our 45s on this angle so that these bad sides of the board all wind up on the inside. So now, keeping that in mind, we're going to go ahead and get 145 cut on each and every one of these boards. The cedar's already got it smelling pretty good in here. Now these are plenty long, so I don't have to worry about trying to be tight to the corner. Just get me a nice 45. And there we have it. I'll get these other 3 cut, and then we will be ready to start doing some measuring and some laying out. So with a 45 cut on all of my boards, what I want is for this backing to be inset into the back side of this frame by 1/2 of an inch. So I'm going to be cutting these boards 1 inch shorter. So this is 13.5. So the insides of my angles here to here are going to be 12.5. And these are 17.5, so they'll be 16.5. That'll give me a 1/2 inch all the way around for this to sit into this frame. So with those measurements in mind, I'm going to go ahead and get these marked out from the shortest point to the shortest point at 12.5 inches. And then I will get these 2 sides cut, and then 16.5 and 16.5, and get the top and the bottom cut. So I'm just going to put me a little mark on the inside of my frame right here. So I'm going to burn 1 inch, meaning I'm going to start at 1 inch right on my 45 cut right here. And it doesn't have to be precise. However, once you cut your other piece, they have to be identical. So that's the biggest thing. And then you obviously want to make sure that you have your 1/2 inch that you want to deal with there. So we're going to go ahead and just get us a little mark at 13.5. And that is where I want the shortest point of my frame to be. So my 45 will come out this way. I'm going to get the rest of these marked out, and then we'll go ahead and get them cut off. I also want to mention that I'm going to put a link down in the description for the tools that we'll be using today. If you use those links, it will not cost you any extra. However, I do make a small percentage. Now with this side marked out, I'm ready to go ahead and get it cut. Now I know it's going to be just a little bit too long, and I'm okay with that. It gives me a little room to play. Now, using the one I just cut as a template on top of the other one, I am going to go ahead and cut it. And this will help me to get them more precise. So now that I've got these two cut, just want to check on my matting and make sure that we're good. So I've just put some light marks on my matting at 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, just on this one side. And I want to lay my piece in here at 1/2 inch and line this corner up right with that 1/2 inch. Now, like I say, if I go over, if I cut these 1/8 of an inch or whatever too short, it's no big deal. It'll just mean that I'll have to make a little bigger dado in them. It's not like I'll have to start over. So actually I want to trim this 45 just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch. I want to trim off of this 45, and then I will match this one to it so that they're exactly the same length. Let's get this trimmed off. So all I want to do is take about 1 blade width off. And that's perfect. My line is gone, so I am in good shape. Now if I line these two up, obviously one is going to be slightly longer than the other, and it is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take a little bit off and recheck them. That was about 1/2 of a blade width. I'm not thinking it was quite enough. When it comes to getting pieces exactly precise like this without using a stop, I like to sneak up on them. So I'm going to push them up against my fence and make sure that one side of the 45 is lined up perfect, and then come back and check this one. And the top board is just slightly longer, so I'm just going to graze it with the blade and recheck it. And you want to make sure you're holding them tight against the fence while you're doing it. And that is feeling really good to me. So we are going to move on to the other two pieces. I'm going to do the exact same thing with them, and then we will have our general frame cut out. Now with all my miters cut, I've got the frame just sitting here loosely on the bench upside down. And I've got my combination square set at 5/8 of an inch. So I just want to get me a line on here and a line over here, and do the same thing over here, just so I can get a measurement and double check the size of my dado. And the reason I'm going 5/8 instead of 1/2 inch is because we wound up just a tick smaller than I had originally measured, just to get all the board squared up, and I'm okay with that. So what I'm looking for here is the size of my 17.5 by 13.5. So I'm going to burn an inch. So that should put me at 14.5, a 1/16 more, which would be my 13.5. And this is going to put me at 18.5, which is my 17.5. So we should be good to go. I'm going to get the dado blades in the table saw and get set up to get these cut out. Before we can set the depth though, we need to figure out what that depth is. So here I have my glass, I have my matting and my backing, and the picture is so thin that it doesn't really matter, and the thumb turns I'm using to hold this in have little points on them, but we are right at 3/8 of an inch thick. So that is how deep I want to cut this dado, is 3/8 of an inch. So we'll go ahead and get the saw set up and get everything ready to go. I have my dado blades in. I have a 3/8 inch setup block. That's what we're going to use to set the height of the blade. My sacrificial fence on because I don't want this dado blade scrubbing up against my aluminum fence. And at the end of the video I have tutorials on how to make all of this. At the end of this video I will put the playlist up for the table saw series, and it'll show you the throat plate and the sacrificial fence. You'll find dado blades set up in there, all kinds of good stuff like that to help you out. So what I want to do is just get this blade where it's right at the top of this setup block, and I'm happy with that. We're going to lock it in, and I'm going to check it before I'll cut one, and then I'll check it and make sure that I have the depth absolutely correct for what I have, and if I need to tweak it I will. Now I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and cut a 3/4 inch dado wide, because it doesn't matter if it's a little bit too wide. If the glass sits down 1/8 of an inch, no one is going to know. It's not going to show in the end result. If you make it too small, then what will happen is you will have, obviously your panels won't fit, your glass won't fit, you'll have to take it all back apart and do it again. So I've got my combination square set at 3/4 of an inch. I'm just going to butt it against the fence and against the carbides of my blade and lock my fence in right there at 3/4 of an inch. Then we'll just double check that and we are good. We're now ready to cut some dados. So we want to make sure our pieces are oriented correctly and that we're taking the dado off of the inside. And this is going to be a full pass because these are 45s, so it won't protrude through. You won't have to worry about seeing the dado. And there is our dado. I'm going to check that and make sure that our fitment is good and that I don't have to adjust as far as our depth that we removed. I'm happy with the depth. We are ready to get the rest of these cut. Okay, we've got them all cut, and the reason you see me run them through twice is I just want to make sure the chippers do a good job at cleaning things up, because there's only 2 blades on the chippers, so they don't cut quite as well as the other blades. Now that we've got our dados cut, we're ready to go ahead and get it put together, but we have to drill some pocket screw holes. So I need to mark it up at 2 1/4 inches because that is the top of the pocket hole, is 2 1/4 inches. So I have my combination square here, and I'm going to get a mark right on this very edge, and then just get another one down here a little bit for reference. It's no big deal because I'll put my combination square on here, get it lined up, and mark that out. Now for the layout of my pocket screws, and the reason I want to do that is so that I make sure that the pocket screw, when I drill the hole for the pocket screw, that I don't drill into the side of my frame. So I want to lay that out so that the center of the pocket screws are over far enough not to get into my frame. I'm thinking that might work for center. We're just going to have a quick look here, see where that comes to, and that is more than enough from our edge. And then we will just move over a little bit more and we will get a second one right on this very edge. Now I'm going to just do the same thing on 4 of the corners. Get our 45s on and get the locations laid out for all the screws. So this one I'm going to move in a little bit, but all I'm going to do now is just set my combination square so I'm right at that intersection and go ahead and lock it in place. That's what I want. Come down here, mark out this intersection. Do the same thing here. And the same thing here. Now I want to do that for this inside intersection also. Now we'll just take our speed square right off of the end and finish our line. Just like that. Now with everything marked out, we're ready to start drilling our holes, our pocket holes. And I've marked it on the top just a little bit so that I can see my reference lines back here. Otherwise, you just can't see what's going on. So with it set flat against the 45, we are ready to go. And we are actually good to go right here. And there we have it. I'll finish getting these drilled in, and then we will get it put together. I have the first corner clamped into place, and I am going to put my screws in. And I'm going to use my drill because cedar is very soft. So you want to stop when the screw stops. You don't want to try and pull it super tight or you'll just strip it right out. That is what you want right there, not too much. And there we have it. Let's get some more in. Let's get everything lined up nice. I'm going to bring it pretty tight to the corner here. Get me a couple of clamps on right here. Get this exactly where I want it. Put a clamp right here for just to hold it. Now the Kreg clamp right on the corner. I need to adjust it just a little bit. There we go. Alright, get this last piece in, and we will be getting really close. It's a nice tight fit. I'm liking that. last 2 screws. Now with all our screws in, we have an assembled frame. Of course, we still have a little ways to go, but we're getting really close. I want to grab that glass and make sure it fits in here. It was cut just a little bit bigger than what I had ordered by about a 1/16 of an inch. So one of the other reasons why I made this a little bit bigger. So let's grab it and make sure it sits in here. That fits in there very nice. Then our matting. Our backing. Our depth is good. Just a little look at it here. The matting actually blends really well with the picture and with the frame. But I'm happy with it, so I'm going to get a little bit of sandpaper on this. We're going to get the hangers on it, and we're going to get the picture in it. So now that the frame is all assembled, we are ready to get our D-rings on. But before I start laying out for the D-rings, I just want to have a good look at the face of the frame and see if I have a preferred top or a bottom. All in all, the frame is pretty equal. There's a little bit of a rougher area right here that I think would be more apparent or stick out more if that was the bottom. So I am going to select this as the top. So the D-rings just need to be placed above center, but they also need to be placed on an angle. And I'll show you exactly how we're going to figure out what that angle is. So first off, my frame is 19.5 inches. So I want the D-rings to be about 1.5 inches above center, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this out at 12 inches. Kind of set it on there and see what I think about that, like just so long as it's above center. And that's looking a little bit high to me. I'm thinking we're going to go 11 inches from the bottom of the frame. So I'll get that marked at 11. Get this side marked at 11. Get me a line across here. Now I want the D-rings to be equal, so this line is going to be the center of my bottom hole. So I just want to make sure that when the D-ring is on here, that it's not interfering with the back side of the picture itself, so the picture can be easily removed. So I kind of like this distance. It's a little further to the outside, so I'm going to set my combination square to the center of that hole, or close to it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get that marked on here. And the same thing over here. Now that will be the center of the bottom hole in my D-ring. So now what we want to do is find the center up here so that we can have an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to use a wire to hold this. So we are 23 inches, so we're looking at 11.5 to the center. Get me a little line there. I'm going to install all this hardware, then remove it and sand all my lines away. And I'm going to come down about 1.25 inches. That's just going to be a reference for where the top of my wire is going to be when it's all hanging everything in place. Now with my carpenter square, I'm just going to come up on the X that I created right here and right here. And draw me a little line right here. And that is going to be the angle of my hook. I want to set it in here and make sure that it's not going to interfere with the picture. And it does a little bit, so I can move it down slightly, which is what I think I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is the hole that it was going to be for the bottom is now actually going to be for the top. The markings that I have, I like that. It lays out just fine. So that is how we're going to install it. We'll get this on here on the other side and get that angle laid out so that this D-ring can also get installed on the correct angle. They don't have to be perfect on the angle because it's gonna hang no matter what. But the better you get these, the better it'll hang and the better it'll pull on these. So I'm going to use my drill to run these screws also because cedar is a very soft wood, so it's not something you want to over tighten. And I just want to give that screw a push once I get it centered. I'm pretty happy with that. And we're going to do the exact same thing over here. Now with our D-rings installed, we're ready to get our thumb turns on. The D-rings I got at Home Depot, and these thumb turns are not really for a picture. They're more for a cabinet door that's full glass to hold the glass into place. But they'll be fine for what I want to use them for. And we have a Rockler Woodworking local, and I went up and found them there. So now the turns need to be fairly close to the edge, and I kind of like that layout right there. So I think I'm just going to check it with my tape here, see if we have an even dimension. And I'm going to put 2 on each side, and then 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So I'm just going to put them at 5.5. From the top. Nice easy dimension. I'm going to do the exact same thing here on the bottom and on the top. 5.5. I'm just going to take my square, maybe like an inch long line or so. It doesn't need to be all the way across. I also want to say too, you could set your dado blade deeper, recess this in, and secure this with points. There are little steel tabs that you kind of stick into the wood to hold everything in place. So that's really a preference kind of thing, I guess. The points are a little harder to take out. If you want to change the picture, they can be removed. And this cedar is a little bit soft, so you take a chance if you push the point a little too hard of splitting it. Now I'm just going to kind of set it on there where I like it. Make sure I'm far enough away from the edge where I wouldn't cause a split. Just going to poke a little dent in it with the screw. Set my combination square and go through and mark them all the same. With all my locations marked, I'm not going to install any of the thumb turns at this time. I just want to go ahead and get the hole created with the screw, and then I'll get it sanded. Now that all my holes are threaded, everything's done, I've removed everything, and I'm just going to take some 220 grit sandpaper and I am going to sand all my pencil lines away. I am not going to fill the pocket holes. I'm just going to clean up around them a little bit so there's no furly stuff hanging off of them. And I'm also going to clean up inside the dado a little bit. There's a little bit of fuzzing in here, so I'm just going to clean up inside the dado just a little bit, not get too carried away. And I'm going to soften the edges very lightly, meaning I'm going to just kind of knock the edges down to a little bit of a 45, just to get any of the loose stuff off and to stop any flaking or anything from happening later. So I'll get this all sanded off and then we'll get this thing put together. Now with everything sanded and cleaned up, we just need to put our D-rings back on, get our glass, get everything in, and then we'll put our thumb turns on after we get it all assembled. I've got the glass all cleaned up and I am ready to drop that into place. How about set it into place? Get this paper out of the way. And there we have that. I've already attached the picture to my matting, and yes, it came from a calendar. We'll get that set into place, and then we will get our backing in. Now we are ready to put our thumb turns on. So I'm just going to bring all them over here. I am just going to kind of square my backing up in the hole here. And get these installed. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these on, and then we will get our wire on and take a look. With all my thumb turns on, everything is secure. We are ready to get our wire on. And I'm just going to pull out plenty of wire because I'll trim off whatever that I don't need. You do want to make sure that you have plenty of wire to get some wraps on here. So I'm just going to start with this one. I'm going to pull through about 4 or 5 inches of wire. And then just give it a good twist. Just like that. We're going to come up to about center. See where that puts us. Feed it through the other D-ring. Be happy with that, I think. No, a little more. There we go. Same thing. Give it some good wraps. And there we have it. So the picture will hang to about there. Looks nice and straight on the D-rings. I like that. Let's take a look at it. And there we have it. I've had this picture laying around for quite some time. Been meaning to build this frame. I had 2 of these pictures. I've already built 1 frame and it's been hanging for a while. This frame just never got completed until I decided, you know what, let's get this frame completed. I'm really happy with how this has turned out for a 2.5 hour project. Gets me out of the house, gets me away from TV or whatever else, and it's fun to build, it's relaxing, and it frees your mind. I like that part about it. So that's a wrap for this one. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider doing so. If you enjoyed yourself, click on the video or the playlist that's going to pop up below me. And remember to always respect the power of your power tools. We'll see you soon.